Boom, let's do it. On today's episode of Hungry for Wisdom, moms have a hard job, and God's answer to that? Same as moms' answers to their kids. You'll thank me later. Let's get going, guys. I gotta turn that up a little. I am here with the illustrious Susie. Everybody say. I actually don't know if that part's gonna make it on camera. Sometimes Tim does a little thing where, he cuts out or something. But hey guys, listen, we are talking today about motherhood. We're talking about everything that God has designed for that specific role, because the world has this all jacked up. I mean, the origami that the world does with the pages of scripture in the realm of motherhood, and I think womanhood in general probably, and wifing and all of that stuff. We just got to straighten this out. That is the job of the church. And so I have brought in one of my favorite stay-at-home moms, one of my favorite people in the world, good friend of the family, good friend of the wife, and a wonderful pastor's wife at this church. This is Susie, who is the wife of the illustrious Pastor Andrew Thomsen. I love your husband, by the way.
Oh.
I'm just going to give him a shout out.
Thank you. I love him too.
he's pretty wonderful. We could just gush on your husband for this episode, but we're not going to, guys. Hey, a couple of things here real quick. You can text in any questions that come from this episode to 509-867-0070, and we will hit those. Actually, I'm going to throw you a curveball today, Susie, because we got a question that came in, and there's a story behind it, because somebody yelled at me last night for not answering this question yet on the podcast, and I was like, we're going to do this. So
I'm excited.
Yeah, you get to weigh in on this. But guys, like it, subscribe it. You can send questions to that number, the 509-867-0070. Hit us up on X at Hungry for Wisdom. You basically just type in Hungry for Wisdom, and then you strip out all the vowels. That's what I had to do to get a name that nobody else had yet. So Hungry for Wisdom on X. Like it, subscribe it, share it, do the 5-star rating. If you think we earned it, be honest. Don't be liars, be truth tellers, and judge with righteous judgment, as Jesus says in John chapter 7. With that, though, I'm going to get us started by reading a little bit of, I'm sorry, ladies, I'm going to read some Proverbs 31. And the reason I say I'm sorry is because this is designed to be encouraging. And because the devil do what he do, he takes Proverbs 31, flips it around, twists it, puts it in a chokehold, and then makes it one of the most discouraging passages for women, for wives, for moms, and all of that. So I want to read this like the good news that it is. I just want you to understand, ladies, as we read Proverbs 31, it's talking about like the ideal woman or whatever. What you're seeing here is a highlight reel, okay? You're seeing the parts of life that are functioning according to God's design, which is what the book of Proverbs is about. Here's the design of God. Here's how you navigate life skillfully in order to squeeze out all the blessings that God has for us in this life. And so we're seeing here the good design of God, not all of the ups and downs and the rigmarole that is life. So this is a very focused snapshot. But look at what he says here about we could call her the virtuous woman, as she's often called. I'll just read excerpts from Proverbs 31, starting in verse 10. An excellent wife, who can find? Oh, me, I found one. That was great. Yeah. An excellent wife, who can find? She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. Okay, so she's got the wifing thing going on. More specifically, today we're going to be talking about the momming thing. Let's go to verse 27. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, beauty is vain, but the woman who fears Yahweh, she is to be praised. Give her the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. Big rewards.
Yeah.
Big rewards for godly womanhood. It ain't an easy thing. Okay, so Susie, this conversation started out almost as a joke because, you and my wife, you spend a lot of time together. You guys go walking in the mornings and stuff, and makes her happy, by the way. She leaves early, and she's she's like, I'm gonna go hang out with Susie, and I'm like, have fun. And then she comes back. I'm like, how was it? And she's like, wonderful. So
that's exactly what I say. I'm a better person when I go for a walk with Emily.
Yeah, even in the wintertime where she's like, I'm so cold, but I had so much fun.
We're like slipping and sliding on the ice, and
Yeah.
we're still like, this is amazing as long as we don't break anything.
We're going through. She's got a thing for breaking her ankles on that ice. So the fact that you've protected her from that, is like, that's an accomplishment. And so you guys go out and talk about whatever you guys talk about. And then basically a lot of that is, I don't know what the content of the conversations are. I know that it's the effect that the conversations have is very encouraging, right? And sometimes instructive. I'm sure you guys, will challenge each other, correct each other sometimes, whatever. I mean, doing what friends do. And so you and I were talking about all that stuff that goes into being a mom. Some of it we're told and we just don't understand until we're in a certain phase of life where it's like, oh, this is what it is. And then a new understanding clicks. Some of the stuff about being a mom, I'm sure, like anything else in life, you're not told, right? Or you're told in a way you don't understand or something. And so it's just like to have somebody with a little bit of experience that's maybe just a couple years further down the road than you is really helpful. And I'm like, I got a lot of young moms listening to the show here, and dads also, that need to know sometimes it's hard for husbands to know what their wives are trying to say. And so it's helpful to get another perspective on it and stuff. So it was like, hey, we should just do a podcast together. And then there was this moment where we stopped and like paused and like looked, and Emily was there, and I think Andrew was there, and we're like, yeah, we should do it. So at the end of this, I think I'm probably going to secretly try and, try to get you to start one of your own, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So yeah, talk to me for a second about just the general concept, and we'll get into the specifics, but the general concept of things that are often believed before you become a mom that just turned out not to be true. Like there's got to be a lot of like light bulb moments, or maybe come to Jesus moments, or however you would describe it. I mean, what's that process like when it's like, oh, this life is not what I thought it was?
Yeah, my goodness. Well, I don't know about anyone else. I grew up, I was 5 of 7, and my parents split when I was younger. So I didn't actually see what a typical home would look like.
Yeah. Keep talking. I'm just going to adjust this for you.
Yeah, perfect. But I honestly thought, and Andrew and I both thought, we're going to have a kid, and he's, or she is going to be our new best friend, and we're all just going to hang out and have a really good time.
Which happens for minutes at a time during the day.
Yes. And I certainly knew that it was, I'm like, oh yeah, there's going to be hard parts. But I would say I personally focused on, or at least I had the understanding of it being more, it's the sleep, and it's the just kind of the more tangible aspects of it, and not recognizing that I just signed up and raised my hand for a forever long discipleship job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're always harping here at Grace and Truth on like the home is a discipleship factory, right? Like that's the design of the home, but that's the forest, and right. And when you're in the trees, it's like, I'm cleaning up the same mess that I cleaned up yesterday. And how many places can you find to put wet Cheerios on your body and in this house?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't feel like discipleship sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? So there's got to be a lot of discouragement that goes with that, just the slowness of it, of progress maybe. It's like time goes so fast, except when you're in it.
It's so true. It is the longest long game that I personally have ever embarked upon doing. It's and I often relate it to when I first worked for much of my motherhood, and you get all these you start to establish some ideas of what life is like. Like I'm a mom, but also I get to do, or I have this job where I'm, whether it's customer service or it's a project manager or whatever it is, where you're putting in work and you get to see the project complete, and you get a high five from the people you worked with, and then you move on to the next thing, and you get to see that fruit turn around really fast. Mm-hmm. And that fruit turnaround that you can see in the workplace or even before you're a parent, that trains you to think, if it, good things come fast, or fruit pops up super fast. And in motherhood, it is generally not like that.
You wrote something. I don't know if this was on a blog or what it was, but I asked you for some of the stuff you'd written. You sent it over to me, and you made this statement that was really interesting to me. You said, women are given a beautiful ability to tackle multiple things and to care about a lot of those things. A lot. Like a lot. All these cares are well suited to the important job of being a mother. But when these gifts are used in the workplace, it's very shiny, and it's usually heavily praised, right? So it almost sounds like you're saying there's a misapplication of mothering gifts that sometimes we can leverage for the benefit of other stuff besides mothering. Like, is it a distraction, or is it like a redeemable thing that's okay in its place, or is it just total evil and don't fall for it? So how do you categorize using mothering gifts outside the home?
Yeah, great question. So I can speak for myself. So what I'm going to say here is for me, and I'm, take it or leave it. But I found that by taking my, these gifts that God gave me to be organized and to be an encourager and all these things, and then taking them into a place that that's going to feed, and a good friend just said, feed the flesh, gratitude. And we got bonusly points, which are points that you get that equate to gift cards. And we had a week where both Andrew and I were, at the team company meeting where, Andrew and Susie Thomsen are rocking it and we're doing this thing and they're rolling stuff out. And you're like a kid that's given an excessive amount of candy for a long time. Mm-hmm. Now you go home and, let's say you clock out, and the actual act of mothering it's not that.
There's not the immediate feedback mechanism, the reward.
Yeah.
Loop.
And you could, and I would just say it then takes the job that you should actually be using that for. And you're like, I'm going to do the same thing at home, but you're not, and you're starving. I was starving. I'm like, I am putting in, all my cares and all of my everything into project managing a perfect day for my children. And at the end of it, it's like, oh my gosh, it was a terrible day. Nobody gave me bonusly points or gave me, nobody said, wow, Mom, I can see all of that work that you put into that. But really, I shouldn't have gotten those accolades in the first place. Those were not good for me. Personally, they weren't good for me.
That's so interesting because it's like there's a deceptiveness to the immediacy of it, right? Like delayed gratification is there's a direct link between maturity and the ability to have delayed gratification rather than immediate gratification. But the world makes it so deceptive that like this shiny thing is the point, right? Yeah. And I remember when Emily and I first got married, we didn't have any kids yet, which that lasted about 6 seconds. We found out that our first one was on the way at 6 months, right? So that 6 month period, we learned a lot. But one of the things was we worked opposite schedules. I was working construction early morning. She was working retail afternoon into the night. And so by the time she's off at 10 p.m., I'm asleep because I got to get up at 3 whatever, right? And so we worked these opposite schedules. And I remember thinking I'd get home to an empty apartment. And I'm like, I just got married. Why am I getting home to an empty apartment? And we would talk about it. And it's like, okay, the reality is she's putting in time to serve somebody else that she would rather be putting in to serve her home and her husband. And I'd rather be putting in to serve her. And then, of course, as a man, it's like, yeah, the person that owns that business is a man. She's giving another man her time. And it wasn't a weird thing. It was just like the reality of the situation was all of this wifely energy that she just 6 months before, made a covenant to pour out in this direction. There are a lot of other influences that will pull, and we got to be careful about that stuff. It's not sinful. It's just, it can be deceptive, right? Okay, so then another deception. You have talked before about how you felt that like anybody could do your job at home, but not anybody could do your job in the workplace. What do you mean when you say that?
Yeah. So I had this preconceived idea. I think it's kind of the idea of like a fish doesn't know that it's in water, like just the culture you're swimming in and that you're living in creates norms. And so you look around and you're like, yeah, no, that checks out with about what I think. The idea that I was created, or the way that God gifted me was in ways that are really suited for the workplace. And I felt that way inside of me. Like that was something that was in my head. I think that was affirmed by culture. And I had individuals even who had, who are big, important people in my life who would say, just like they probably would tell other people, you're way too smart to spend your days, cleaning up poop and cleaning up Cheetos off the floor. And I was like, right? I totally am.
Pat that back again.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But the truth, but in reality, there's a twofold. Here's the thing. I think God designed motherhood so intentionally, and I missed the mark. Motherhood, starting from the minute you're like, baby comes out, and you're like, oh my gosh, look it, I made it. From that point on, where you're just like, There is a dual sanctification process that is taking place both within you as a mom and within your child. And that is like rocks in a rock tumbler, and there's growing and there's joy and there's funny things and there's memories and all those things, I would say kind of snowball into like a skill set and a linking arms with the Lord that is so good for mama, and it's so good for your kiddos too. So what I thought was, you know what, I will just check back in when they're like ready to have conversations about like budgeting and relationships and God.
The actual discipleship
Yeah,
stuff.
the actual I'll just check back in and see. And I did that. I did that thing, and I'm just going to be honest, that snowballing that could have, should have, with God's design, happened at an earlier age that then develops you and matures you and equips you. That didn't happen. And that learning curve that I'm in, that it's like this. It's like, it's a lot, and it feels very overwhelming. And I'm not saying most moms don't feel overwhelmed at certain times, but God's design is such that it is not a burden to be with your kids. It's a blessing. And I think that the way he designed it, where you're with your kiddos and you're learning them and they're learning you, and you're digging into God's word with them, and they're seeing you fail and you're seeing them fail, and you're talking gospel, all that stuff snowballs to discipleship. Mm-hmm. And you can't delegate out and be like, hand them over. Like there's a missed chunk of learning on both parts.
Well, really. And, the feeling of being overwhelmed is part of the struggle that pays off later on anyhow, right? Like you don't get the fruit if you don't put it, if you don't dig in the soil a little bit. And so, when you think about when you became a parent and you thought about everything that your parents did for you and so on, a lot of that, it comes to be appreciated later. And like, I'm going to say some stuff that's really going to make some people mad right now. So ladies, if you got full-time jobs outside the home and your kids are in daycare, I'm going to push back on the methodology a little bit. I love you. Here we go. If you are in your terms, like delegating all of that out and then coming back to do the important stuff, then, only the stuff that only you can do. When that kid grows up and becomes a parent, they look back and say, the design is that they look back and say, oh man, my mom put all this work in before I knew to thank her for it. Well, what if she didn't? What if she delegated all of that work and then went to a place where, she could contribute something different to the world or to the home that she feels is more immediately important than this? And it's like, there's a huge honor, like in verse 27, like you pointed out before we hit record. Well, I guess it's in 28, when her children rise up and call her blessed. All of that grind that mama is doing, her kids are going to rise up and bless her for that later, because that's going to get replicated into the next generation, right? And so that is a real missed opportunity when moms feel that they're replaceable in the home, because it just ain't true. Like it just ain't. Nobody grew up and said, I'm just so thankful for that babysitter that I had. What's her name? Yeah. I mean, babysitters and stuff, I get it. Like we had a babysitter named Mandy when I was a kid, and she was nice. Like she was fun, I guess. I don't know. Like she seemed old to me at the time. I think she was like 19. But, mom had some stuff to do outside the house. She'd call Mandy. Like the community comes into play, and it's all cool. It's all fine. Mm-hmm. But there is a tipping point where the grind of motherhood starts to it starts to not have the oversized return that it's designed to have if you check out too much, right? Okay, so
wait, can I tell a quick story?
Please hit it.
So I worked up until up until 2 years ago is when I worked, and then I came home full time as a mama at home, and then had another baby. So now I've got 4 of them. So when my oldest was younger, I delegated out. So that's why I feel like I can speak to it, to the darlingest nanny. And one time, right, I was torn. I was like, do I work? Do I not? I just want to love him. And I go to pick him up, and I had actually asked my boss, can I get off work early? I just really feel like I need to be with my son. And I went to go pick him up, and I was early, so he was kind of mid-nap. And I walked into the room where he was napping, and I was like, good morning, Joshua. And he looks up at me, starts crying, turns to his nanny, and reaches his arms out to her. Oh.
No.
And I was crushed to my core. And that right there is like, in a nutshell, what I wish I would have paused then and been like, so what's happening here? Like, how did we get to this point? And, but that there is what happens. I know, isn't that so? I mean, I cried. I like barely held it together, and then got in the car and just was like, I hate my life. I suck.
Wow.
I'm the world's worst mom. Praise the Lord for my nanny, who's amazing, and I love her. But
yeah,
that was really hard.
No, and in that moment, because there's a lot of moms in that situation, right? And in that moment, it's not true that you were the worst mom in the world, right? It's true that an adjustment needed to be made. Mm-hmm. But what Joshua really needed was for mom to recognize some stuff, have some wisdom, take some corrective action, make some changes. It's not like your son loves you, now. I mean, all your kids love you so much, so loyally, and they run to you now. Like, you fixed it.
Yeah,
right?
The Lord was gracious in it. That's really what I should say.
Yeah, totally redeemable, totally doable. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a big problem.
But a big, I just think for young moms, you step into the same shoes that I was in. And a mom couldn't have told me, hey, you should really focus your energy, attention, effort on your home. Your work can come later if it's important and if it's what God has for you. Like, no one could have told me to do that.
Why is that?
I didn't believe it. I don't know if it was because I just didn't see it in here. Like, I didn't see it. And also the ocean I was swimming in didn't say that to me either.
Like, those weren't the values of your community?
Yes. Really? And I was the first to have kids out of, all my friends group. I'm the 5th of 7, but I was the first to have kids too. And so there wasn't anyone that was close enough to me who I would have looked at them and they would have said, all right, I've got your back. I'm here for you long term. And I'm going to say the hard thing. Mm-hmm. Nobody would say the hard thing. Everybody was too scared to say the hard thing for fear that it would offend. And I wish someone would have just been like, girl, because I thought I heard the message from people, but I don't think anyone said it in a way that was the type of direct discipleship, like the type of love that corrects or that informs.
Yeah, and you said something interesting one time that you would look at opportunities as open doors from the Lord, right? And so then there's these weird confirmation loops that happen where it's like, well, God clearly wants me doing this because that door opened. And I hear that a lot as a pastor, and I'm like, guys, Satan has a set of keys also. Like, don't fall for it, But
yes.
What about all these open doors with our children? And it's like, if the goal of life is to make disciples, then we've got open doors every day, like right here. So, I mean, when you're highly capable, which I'm just going to go out on a limb and say you're a high output, high impact type of person, right? And when you put your mind to something, it gets done well. And so when you're highly capable like that, the world notices, and there's always going to be draws on your attention. And so, like, how did you learn to, or have you yet learned to sort out what's God leading you somewhere versus what's just a distraction and no, I need to do this? Because when you want to do something, it's real easy to get super Pentecostal and be like, Lord's speaking to me, here we go. So how do you sort through those things? Because opportunities keep coming. I literally just told you should start a podcast, right?
That is such a good question. I will say, to speak to that, that's the hard part about having a toe in the workplace is it's not just a toe. It's a toe, and then it's an ankle, and then it's an elbow, and it's and so I personally had to hard no everything. In fact, even doing this podcast, to all you listening, I was like, this is like, I will focus on this and enjoy this way more than my home stuff because this is fun. This is like, and it's way too easy for me to be pulled away in terms of prioritization in my heart away from the home.
There's a gravitational pull once you get started. Yeah.
Once you've been fed the candy, it is like Andrew can attest to. About once every 4 months, I'll look at him and say, "Honey, I'm just gonna start looking at jobs." And it kind of, at first it was pretty frequent. Now it's like less frequent, but there's an allure to it. And so I would say, as far as that open door thing, women, mothers, chances are if you were to be placed in the workplace, you would give it everything that you had, or you would pour into it. And they would say, thank you so much for pouring into it. And then that feedback loop will happen. But that's not God's design for mothers. That's not God's best. That's not God's long-term discipleship process. And so I'm just going to say this. Don't apply for jobs just for funsies like I used to. Because then, yes, doors will open.
Just see what you can get away with.
Get comfortable saying no to things. Like even as I started ideating like a women's ministry needs some structure or whatever it may be. And then going, but here's my limit. If my home isn't cared for, if I am behind on all the, that which is, she carefully watches everything in her household. If my household is not in order, then I have no place dipping my toe outside of it. For me personally, the way that I'm wired, I need to continue focusing on one thing and seeing that to its end instead of looking for the next dopamine hit or looking to the next project to be like, oh, shiny new thing. And actually something you said with Andrew in your podcast was that you had heard a study that was essentially we're losing the ability to like get to think about things for a long time because people will just get started. They'll throw out information and then we're already on to the next thing before it can be fact checked. So essentially we're just kind of like, we're just constantly fed this,
Yeah, you're always in reaction mode.
Exactly. Yeah. And motherhood is a very, very different thing. It requires a lot of presence. It requires a lot of self-control. It requires endurance and a strong reliance on the Lord for wisdom on a minute by minute basis.
So let's talk then about working outside the home in general as a concept, because I hear what you're saying, the total immersion thing at home. Well, I don't know. I'm assuming you know this, but funny story in case you don't. There was a little while ago where it was like, man, we need to hire an admin around here at the church. And I was talking to Andrew about it, and we were both like, oh, Susie would be perfect at this. And then it was like, he basically said, yeah, we're not going there. And because he knew that, there would be in the church world, there's always more to do, right?
Yeah.
And when you see stuff like that, it's really hard to draw boundaries and say, okay, I'm going to do this until 3:00 and then I'm going to go home or whatever. And with the kids the age that they are and whatever. But the conversation was basically, there's going to be so much time for that later. Right. And we forget about later because we're in our mid to late 30s. I don't know how old you are. I'm 38. And it's like, we feel like when our kids are out of the house, we're going to be old. Not really. No. And, when our Charlie is 18, we're going to be 47, I think. Mm-hmm. And so, it's like, there's all kinds of time after that,
Can I speak to that?
Do it.
Yeah. So, I would say as far as that's concerned, it's, I laugh because I'm like, I'm actually resume building every single day of my life.
It's true.
As we're structuring days and organizing projects inside the home and managing interpersonal relationships. I just laugh about it. I'm like, oh, but I have the best resume when all is said and done. But
expert spanker.
But more importantly, this is the rock tumbler. Like this is the rock tumbler season that God has for women. And when you pop out of that rock tumbler, the refinement that the Lord will have done on you will take you to the next level in terms of what you can do outside the workplace. You will have, peace that passes understanding because you've had test after test after test after fail after test after test. You're going to have a lot of wisdom. You're going to have a lot of empathy, which I know is a hot topic word. Andrew always laughs at it, but you are going to
the proper kind of empathy.
The work that the Lord can do at home, I think is like just incredibly beneficial for the character of a woman in particular. From the, she's in it, she's growing, she's learning. It's hard. It's Lord help. It's grow me. It's stop growing me. It's too hard. All those things. And then on the other side of that, that is a woman who is equipped to handle much. And I think like, wow, for such a short, it's like when I think of it in exercise terms, I like to do sprints. It's like, oh, it's like a sprint because then you get the benefit in a shorter period of time. You are in like ages 0 to 18, the amount of growth that can happen, that then you could take that afterwards and, do it outside the home. if that's what you're called to do, I think is incredible.
And that feels like a marathon at the time, but what do we always say, right? It goes so fast.
And I even had a moment the other day, and I've got a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 6-month-old today. And I was sitting there.
Today? She's 6 today?
Oh, 6 months today.
I'm going to have to cruise by your house later. I'm going to call Andrew and be like, I'm coming over to put smooches on those cheeks.
She's so wonderful.
She's great.
But I'm like in that, and 2 of them were napping and 2 of them were out playing. And it was like, wow, there's already, I can see pockets of lull. If that, like a pocket of like, wow, things aren't on. And I had this image of, wow, this is going to come probably a lot sooner than I think. This where everybody has things to do. I'm not just like completely on. And everyone always says it goes by too fast, and I think it probably really does, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so hard to understand time while you're still in it, right? God. It's like you got to be outside of it and looking at it. Yeah. So then in terms of working outside the house, when are the proper times to work outside of the house then, right? Yeah. Okay, so actually this is a good time for that question that we got. So the backstory here is I was at our community group last night, and shout out Janessa. She said we were in the kitchen after we got done, we're all eating snacks and running around. And so we're all just standing around the kitchen, and she goes, Dustin, I got a bone to pick with you. And I was like, all right, what's up? And she says, I wrote in a question to the podcast line, and you haven't hit it yet on an episode. And I was like, all right, I got a long list. So I pulled up the list, and I said, I don't know who wrote what. I don't get names. So just tell me which question it is. So she showed me. So here it is. That was last night. So Janessa, we got you. Within 24 hours, we solve problems. All right. Titus 2:5 says women are to work at home. Does that mean that women are to aspire to be homemakers and not have a job outside the home? Okay. So on one hand, it's like, yeah, it's kind of what we've been saying, like, go home, which is really offensive to women when a man says it, Yeah. But in reality, the Bible's like, listen, sister, you got kids? Go home.
Yeah.
Now, there are other times where, let's take the extreme, where there's an injury situation and the husband just can't work, at least for a season or whatever, right? There's some kind of disability that happens, an accident on a construction site, a diagnosis of something horrible, whatever. And so there are times where a woman being in the workforce is the godliest thing that she can possibly be doing, because she's got to help her husband shoulder that burden of provision. He's got to help mate for a reason, right? But that's the extreme. We would all say, okay, we're not legalists. We understand. Like, you got to put food on the table, and we got a partnership here. When, in your view, when is it okay or wise to, as you say, dip your toe in? Like you've got a side business. I don't know if you're still super active with it, but it's like nutrition coaching and things like that, right? So you're in the middle of having to make these decisions. Yeah. So how do you navigate all of this stuff?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll start with maybe for me, because I think it's so hard. It's like, come have a conversation and we can chat through like the heart behind it. But for me, as far as the nutrition coaching, it's something that was a huge gift to me, and it is a gift to me to get to use my passion for health and fitness and my love for women and my just the gift of encouragement that the Lord's given me to use all that to.
There's people outside the office distracting us right now. Yeah, they want to jump in on the episode.
I know,
Can't do
it. Gosh, what was I saying? So that was something that the Lord gave to me, and I got to practice the art of discipling. And this was while I had my full-time job. So I was doing that in little pockets of time. I saw probably up to 12 women at a time, and I would see them weekly. Well, the Lord has shown me that I can't. I'm like the alcoholic who can't touch a drink.
Okay.
And that's not for everybody, but at least I can't speak to everybody, but I personally think if you go back to that candy, it's so hard to find the contentment and joy being at home that you could that you can embrace if you're not double-minded.
Okay.
So as far as can a woman work outside the home, I have been a mom for 15 minutes, so I'm not going to speak to that. But
but your 15-minute-old kids are awesome, and your husband is super impressed with your momming. So you do have some cred here.
So let's pause for a second and be like, okay, so this is what God gave us, right? And He also gave us brains. So if God his design was that a husband and wife come together. He gave fields to cultivate. He gave, good things. And then he made a woman so that she carries a baby. And then that baby comes out. Whether it's cut out or pushed out, it comes out. And I've had both.
That's a whole other podcast right there.
And then they're here, and then your body is actually their food. Okay, so we're kind of getting an idea of God's design for a mama. It's like, first you're carrying the baby and you're developing this bondness and this closeness and this self-sacrificial aspect of what it looks like to be a parent. And you get that nice and early as you're throwing up and you're puking, whatever. And then you step into early motherhood and your body's all like, whatever it's doing, and your brains are wonky a little bit. But all within God's design, you're feeding this baby, you're growing this baby. Would it not seem quite natural, thinking about the way that God designed it, that he would design a mother to be the primary caretaker of the children that he gave them, of the gifts that he gave them? Like, to me, it cracks me up that I, for so long, didn't think about God's design. I really more so looked to the culture to tell me what was right and what was normal. But God's design is for us to be home, and we can't have our cake and eat it too. We can't have, like, I had a mom who said she helped special needs kids, and she was their speech pathologist. But then when she had kids, the Lord was clearly like, yeah, I know that you love this, but your kids, that's your job. That's your job now. Your job description just changed. Cross that one off. Save that for another season. You now have a new job, and that one is best for you. It is best for your children. It is best for the family unit. We could find verses to support that, and we can also find, verses to support almost anything that we want. So,
sure. Well, even in Proverbs 31, you've got the woman working outside of the home in a limited capacity, right? Like, it doesn't take away from her seeing well to the ways of her household, but she's wheeling and dealing with some real estate, and she's kind of got a little fashionista thing going on where she's making clothes for her family, but she'll go ahead and sell them. So it's not like totally prohibited. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, if I'm hearing you right, then it's like, dude, just do this thing. And if something else comes and, the Lord lets you go ahead, then go ahead, but do this thing.
Just do this thing. And then if you find, like, I like to write, I have a friend who likes to do photography. I have another friend who loves to cook. And so kind of take a look at, like, all right, how has God gifted me uniquely that when I do that thing, it actually has a feedback loop of filling my cup so that I can be a better mother and wife in motherhood. So for me, it's walks with your wife. That falls into that category. It's writing. I wrote something because in writing something, it felt like I was able to to put something on paper, and it fed me. I went through a season, or that friend encouraged me, hey, sign up for every meal train that you can. Start to serve those people around you, and find things that you can do that are actually modeling to your children the way that you would like, that generosity and that creativity. I think it's fun because now my son has written his own book, and we've been able to
wait.
Like,
which son?
Joshua. Can
I see it?
Oh my gosh, yes! It's called. What is it? It's about how the leaves change. It's called The Tree Salon, and it's about how the leaves change their colors, and it's like they're going to a salon and coming back. And it was all these things, right?
It's a great metaphor.
Isn't it so fun? And so it's like these things that you can do where you're getting to still be the person that God designed you to be, which, and I say that in the sense of, write out how God's uniquely gifted you, and then find things that you can do that actually just support your role as mom and wife. Don't pull you away from it. Don't entice you to want more of it. And ultimately it's between, I would say like, I come to Andrew and I say, Andrew, Dustin asked me if I could meet up with this gal because it's a good situation for me to meet up with this gal. What do you think? How's our plate looking? Am I about to overwhelm myself? Am I already overwhelmed and I just can't see because I'm in muck? So I rely a lot on my husband and really entrusting him. And so I would say, like, does that help? It's like, when is it okay to work outside the home? If you're enticed by it, recognize your own heart and your own desire. And why is that? What about outside the home feels so good to you?
Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for from it flow the well springs of life. Yeah, guard the center. Something else I hear you saying is, and you're not really saying this. I'm taking the implication of it, is that everything you're talking about doing in terms of using your gifts, you're talking in terms of things that will multiply those gifts into the next generation or into the people around you. So jumping on meal trains, you're using that gift now for somebody else's benefit, and your kids are seeing you do that. And I'm sure you're teaching them how to cook along the way. I think as a homeschooler and not when I was a kid, but now we're a homeschool family, and as a big, huge, fat advocate for homeschooling, it's like all of these gifts that mom has, the kids pick up on those things, right? Like my wife's got this thing that by the time our kids are 7, they should know how to run the house, like everything. So they're doing dishes, laundry, cooking the meals that will keep people alive. Charlie's a little behind on the eggs. His eggs are not there yet, but he's still 7, so we'll get there. Just got to get there before his 8th birthday. But it's like my wife is so gifted in things, and she's not robbing the world of those things. She's actually, if you wanted to think in those terms, she's multiplying those gifts into the world, so that by the time she's done raising the kids and she's, if she wants to go and get a job or whatever, yeah, she's got these finely honed skills that you're talking about that she can go and contribute to the workplace. And then there's 6 other finely honed sets of skills that are out there. It's like,
that's so good.
It's a huge blessing to her and to everybody else.
Oh gosh.
Especially me. I got 7 people in my house now that can cook for me.
Oh my gosh. Well, and then, and guys, I have learned so much just from watching your family. Andrew and I are like, we are going to spend as much time with the Myers as we can because we're just learning by osmosis. We're like, if we're next to them, can we learn from them? And so not only is Emily's everything being poured into your children, but then like my family has benefited and other families have benefited. And then get this, I have people who are looking at my family who I've learned from her and the way she's discipled her children, and they're learning from me.
And we've learned that from others.
Yes.
Yep.
And so it's so funny. It's so beautiful. God's design is just so beautiful.
Right. And so the nuclear family then is the benefits of it spread out beyond the nuclear family into the community. Communities make societies. Societies make cultures. And I mean, we can, I don't want to get all like missiological about it, but we can take over the world with a few generations of solid homes, but it can't happen without mom.
Can we, Dustin, that just reminds me, can we talk a second about?
No.
No. I think in your version it was different, but she carefully watches everything in her household is what Proverbs 31:27 says. And I was just kind of...
What translation are you using?
This is NLT.
I really like the way that phrased that.
It's good, right?
Guys, I just said something good about the NLT. Write that down. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. It's what Joshua's Bible is, and we've been doing Bible studies together. And I
Sure.
was like, you know what? I'm going to embrace it, and we'll just call it good.
Own it. Okay, so that was verse 27.
27.
So mine was, she looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness.
Yes, which I think they're both. They're both
you said what?
It says she carefully watches everything in her household and suffers nothing from laziness.
Mic drop.
So I know, right? So one thing that I would like to say, and I think it should be said, is you can be a stay-at-home mom and still not be discipling your children.
So it's possible to check the box, feel like you're doing a good job, and just not actually be doing the work?
Yeah, it is very possible to do that. And I will say, just from... like, I'm a box checker. So I was like, I'm home. Is everything fixed now?
Okay, so that sounds like there's a lot of deception behind that somehow. So somehow somebody would be being deceived into thinking they're fulfilling this command and not.
Yes. So, and what I'm saying, and you would say it's not whether you're discipling them or not, it's what you're discipling them into probably.
Right,
and
yeah,
so
we don't have a
probably,
choice. We're teaching them something.
We're teaching them something. And so I guess all that to say, you could be at home and still not be observing everything in your home carefully. You could be on your phone. You could be, I remember I had a season where I would go to the gym a lot just because it made me feel like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that was like a good chunk of my time as a stay-at-home mom. And it was, the Lord is so gracious, and I have nothing wrong with the gym, but there's so many ways to be distracted at home, to make things big that are like I struggle also too with like, I just want my house to be clean. So, right. Mm-hmm. To at the expense of the discipleship of my children, be like, go watch a show. I'm going to vacuum for therapy or wipe down counters. So I think that, it's like, it's not just like, okay, so working moms, be a home mom now, ready, set, go. It's all moms everywhere and fathers with the time that you have with your children. Your job is to disciple them, and the world that we live in offers really nice, awesome dopamine hits from different things that are super short term, right? Oh my gosh, it's like you can hear it. And so it's not just being at home, it's being home intentionally.
Yeah, being home isn't the point. Discipling your kids is the point.
Yeah.
Right? Being home can just be laziness.
Can just be and I think temperament wise, I've got friends who are like we joke. It's like, I'm like Dustin. We're like, we could do a bajillion things.
Right.
And
That's the joke between us is that like, you're just like me and Andrew's just like Emily.
Yes, which I'm like, babe, I think you were meant to be home. You're so much more like, he observes and he just kind of could sit there and be like, so I noticed.
All right. Andrew's now my work wife. That's what we're...
You're welcome. I'm happy to share him.
Congratulations on the demotion, Andrew. There you go.
But I think there's my struggle isn't idleness, it's distractedness. But I have friends who will say, I'm just kind of sitting in like laundry and I just kind of don't know what to do. Like it's like, I just would rather be sitting there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I would sit there. It's like, and so there's that, what are you, as an individual, take note. If you are home and you're like, oh good, no one's judging me for working because I'm at home. And so, it's like, but where's like, it's work.
Well, in that situation, all you've done is you've exchanged the reward loop in the workplace for the reward loop in the church community. Yeah. Like my church says I'm good because I'm a stay-at-home mom. Now I'm a hero, and my pastor's going to say good things about me from the pulpit, which is true. We want to extol stay-at-home moms because honestly, I think they need the encouragement. They're not getting it from the babies a lot of times. So, but yeah, it's possible to hijack that system and counterfeit it. So, but also, I think on the other side of that, being home, working hard intentionally, doing the right things at home, it's also important to remember, like, the point is not to have your home totally in order every second of every day. The point is to disciple your kids. And sometimes other responsibilities that are good and necessary things, they just need to slip. And it's like, it's okay. Like I'm always telling people this, especially women. If I come over to the house, I'm visiting the family. I don't go over without the husbands there. But like, some women will kind of freak out and be like, hey, pastor's coming over. Or maybe even just somebody's coming over, right? We got to clean up and do all this stuff. I understand a quick 5-minute pickup. We do the same thing in our house. But it's like, leave the laundry on the couch. I don't care. I do not want you to clean your house when I come over. I got 6 kids and we live in a friggin' Cracker Jack box. I've seen it all. You cannot scare me with a messy house.
It's my favorite.
Oh, my house is awful and my home is beautiful, right? And it's like, that's okay. That's part of life. It's like the house was made in 94. It's terrible. It's like leaning a little bit to the left if you look at it from a certain perspective. And it's a pile of garbage. And it's kind of like, we'll do what we can to keep it functional. But it's okay. Like, live some life, make some disciples. Maybe the socks aren't matched. How are your kids' hearts doing, right?
Yep.
Okay, so you've talked about something else before that is I think so important, that mothering, and I think you could say this about all parenting, but mothering in general, it's seen as not fun and not rewarding, at least immediately, right? Like the rewards are deferred 18 to 40 years when, someday they'll get it and they'll call me and say thanks, which is true, right? There's a lot of that. But I'm going to ask you to speak to something that it maybe is impossible to put into words. So feel free to tell me to just take a hike. But how do you think about the immediate rewards of mothering? Because I think it's just, I totally reject the idea that all of the reward of parenting is deferred. I think being with my kids is awesome, right? And I think it's actually probably better for moms. I'm a little bit jealous of the mother position over the father position in that sense. I think you guys have access to more joy and heart connection than dads do when we work outside the house. So can you talk about the immediate benefits and payoffs of mothering?
Yeah, gosh. There's so many. I think about, different age groups. There's so much that, so immediate benefits. So gosh, there's so many little things where, like, my husband sneezed and then Ethan was like, bless you. And you're like, hey, I've modeled that for so long and that's new. Like, a child automatically saying bless you. Or Joshua broke something and he was heartbroken about it. Joshua broke something.
Wow.
I know. It was something, I love him. It was something that he had carried around, and Andrew had said, honey, we need to keep that up higher. It's going to break. It's porcelain. And he was like, but it's my best friend. So it breaks, and I'm like, oh no, it broke. And I want to be like, ha, told you so. And I see my 4-year-old go, you know what? It's going to be okay. It's just okay. We can fix it probably. Like comforting and these things that I would do, that I've poured into my children, being parroted to each other. And And those things, you're like, oh my gosh, like it's happening. And, some of those are super quick. Like I don't know, things that happen where you're like, oh, he learned that so fast. And now we're all getting to reap the benefit of that. Or even just looking at your kids and laughing with them. And there's so much fun to be had at home. Like the laughs are insanely incredible, like just so much fun. There's so much play that can be had. And there really are, if you're looking for them, there's so much little baby fruit within each of your children when you're pouring into them. And I think you just, as a person, you have to look for them, because sometimes the hard parts can really take over. Like I spent an hour on discipline for one child yesterday, and I have 4 of them. And that's what it took. And so at the end of the day, I could have been like, oh my gosh, the whole day was exhausting because I had to spend a whole hour. And it's like, no, actually, in between that, there were really sweet moments of heart changes that I saw. And there was opportunities for this, Joshua picked up Bella and brought her over somewhere and took care of her because he knew that I had to go do discipline. There's all these little things that are a joy and a delight.
And those are things that in most cases, I think, can't be explained later. You just have to be there.
It's so true.
It's one of the reasons I'm jealous of Emily is like I get home and, there's all these things and they try to tell me about them. And I'm like, I can tell that was a precious moment and I wasn't here.
Oh my gosh. Yes. We had one yesterday. We have cameras around our house. And so the kids were like, we have to look at the recording. Like I had made a waffle for a kid and then I tossed it to them and it plopped right in their water.
Oh no.
And we were laughing so hard because it's like, it literally was the last waffle that was available for anyone to eat. And I just tossed it and baptized somebody's waffle in water. And we laughed for about 3 hours after that. It would just keep coming up. So it is a joy. And it's also a lot of work.
Yeah, I think that there's a direct correlation that you can draw between people that think that they categorize time with their kids as drudgery. There's a correlation between that and people that don't like their kids very much. And nobody would say they don't like their kids, but you know what I mean? Like you can kind of, some people say it depends on the kid.
Spend enough time with your kids, you're going to find things that are good and also things that are hard.
Well, yeah, there's that, but it's like the people that really actually enjoy hanging out with their kids, it's like that's a result of doing the things that can feel like drudgery sometimes. Hour-long discipline. But in that hour-long discipline, you're building trust, right? And you're building structure that then leads to joy, because then once there's boundaries, then there's a playground, and there's a lot of play that happens in the playground because there's safety there. And so there's all these payoffs, and it seems to me that you really do have more fun with your children the more work you put in. Yeah. It's a weird kind of design.
It's beautiful.
You get out what you put in.
The way they God designed it was very intentional. And I think that the culture has done a great job of hijacking that.
Culture sucks.
Culture gets 0 out of 10 stars, would not recommend.
Boo. But there is such a thing as a Christian culture where certain things are valued. I mean, like, Hebrews 13:4, it says, let marriage be held in high regard by all, and let the marital bed be kept pure, right? And so it's like, right there, he says, I want your culture to be about this. Like marriage, good. Faithfulness, absolutely non-negotiable. And then the culture is, and this is Old Testament, but you've got the Jewish and the Christian culture where motherhood and wifehood isn't a word. There's got to be, like whiffery is weird. That's out. Yeah, can't do it. But
wifeyhood,
wifedom, wifing. There you go. We'll turn it into a participle. So where motherhood and wifing is a good and an honorable thing. I mean, even that thing in the fifth commandment, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land in which I am taking you. That was revolutionary. Nobody was honoring mom back then. That's not in any written code anywhere before Moses put it down, right? And so we can create a culture, and that starts in the home. Honor mom, right? Dad's got to honor mom, because if dad don't do it, kids won't do it. And kids better be taught to honor mom. But, I mean, to your point from earlier, mom's got to deserve the honor too. Like there's this weird thing about Christianity where God says, when you have a title, whether it's mom or dad or pastor or president or king or whatever, I will tell people to give you honor. Now, earn that honor that I have given you preemptively, right? And
that's good, yeah.
Yeah, and you've been designed to do it. You bring up this verse, Philippians 2:3, and it is such an interesting application here, the context in which you bring this up. So Philippians 2:3 says, "Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourself." Now, we talk about that in the church a lot of times, right? When you're in the church, you serve other people, right? We sacrifice for the benefit of others, and that's a good thing to do. You're taking this straight into mothering, which I think, like, is there a better theme verse than that? I think that was just a great insight, great call. So how did Philippians 2:3 end up being like? What was there a light bulb moment, or like what happened there?
Yeah, gosh, I wish I could even remember where I pulled that from, but in this, it's like this is for me, and it's like the Bible is written by God, and so there's truth in here, so extract that. But as I kind of dug into motherhood and what it looked like, it's a lot of considering those around you as more significant than yourselves. And I always think it's funny. It's like they didn't have to say the opposite. They weren't like, hey, make sure you don't like overly look out for the people around you. Like
be selfish a little bit once in a while.
Yeah, make sure to protect yourself. Like, come on. It's very much like you are going to naturally want to protect and want to and want to do what feels good for you. But in this, and I would say in this season, there is a lot of considering your children's long-term as more important than your immediate short-term of feels.
That's kind of the definition of love, right?
Yes. Oh, and that actually right there was one thing that I think I got switched in my head as I would say probably a newish believer when I became a parent, just mentally, was the idea that I would say, people would say, you love your Joshua so much. The way you look at him, you love him. And to me, love was, I just like want to kiss his face and eat him up. Not really understanding that love is different than that. And it includes that.
Yep.
But love is a lot. Truly loving someone means that you're wanting what is best for them in the long term, and that you're willing to sacrifice on their behalf out of your love for them.
Greater love has no one than this, that a man laid down his life for his friends. Yeah.
So, and I specifically had this as far as the kind of like working mom conversation, because I think it's really there for a lot of moms who potentially are listening to this going, okay, I hear that for you. But God's word has to tell us to think less of ourselves and to think more of others. And so in this particular scenario, I think it's just really applicable to setting aside something that feels good for the benefit of those humans that the Lord has entrusted you with, knowing that that's going to be hard.
There's a real evil that women are prone to sometimes as mothers, which is to vicariously give yourself honor and cloaking that in honoring your children. And so I'll see this sometimes where it's like, my baby has to have the best clothes, and my baby has to have the best little fake little earrings on her ears, or I mean real ones, or what some people, we never pierced our baby girl's ears, but some people do, and it's like, and
I do.
Do you? Yeah. Well, because are those real on Bella?
They are 100%
oh my gosh.
real.
Cutest thing ever. But but they'll get all this bling and whatever, and they're like decorating their baby, not because they want to serve their baby, but because it's like, look, this is my baby. And so it's like a reflection on themselves. And it's at that point, that's not, and of course they would all say, I love my kid.
Yeah.
And I would, I don't doubt that. If you don't love your child, you're a psychopath, right? There's very few of those in the world. But it's like, yeah, you love your kid, but that is not love. I'm not saying you don't love your kid. I'm saying that's not what you're doing right there is not a result of the love that you have for your kid. That's something different. That's self-service and kind of a pilfering of the kid's cuteness for your own uplifting. Yeah. And it's really deceptive, man, because there's like, and you could probably explain this better than I can, but I mean, there's a maternal instinct that says if my kid is well taken care of, that is a moral good. But the enemy can pollute that, and the flesh can pollute that. And so sometimes it's that old like beauty pageant thing where it's like, okay, the little girl is in a beauty pageant because the mom's a total freaking psycho. You know what I mean? And the mom's like, now you do good. You make me look good now.
Oh, that's right? So hard. Because I think it's funny you say that. one thing that I've really kind of had to sit in for a bit in this season, because I'm in a hard season. It's hard for me, and it would be a lie if I said that it was not hard, is the idea that I could be doing the exact same thing as Emily Myers, just doing the exact type of discipline of my children and whatever. But if my heart is self-serving in that, if I'm like, right, Emily's over here like, all right, kids, this is what we're doing, and da-da-da. And I'm over here like, in my head, you better make me look good and not embarrass me. But out loud, I sound the same exact.
Same
all right,
words.
Children, so da-da-da. Like, God sees the heart. And not only does God see the heart, which is the most important thing, because he wants our hearts to be geared, to be turned towards him, and for everything we do to be a way of honoring him and glorifying him and worshiping him, including motherhood. But also, the fruit of that comes out. Like, there's no way for that to be my motivation, and for at some point the truth of my heart to not come out.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that pastors' kids have such a reputation of being screwed up. It's not all because of dad. I think mostly, but when like, and now that, you know, now that your kids are pastors' kids, this is
lol.
This is, you know, you just inherited this problem also. Congratulations. But you know, it is dad, you know, for the most part. It's like, we'll sometimes choose church over the kids, or these things seem more urgent. So the church becomes that thing that took my dad away, or, you know, whatever. So there's all of that. And that's most of it. But also there's mom, pastor's wife, who is trying to keep the kids in line to make dad look good. Right. And so we have to work really intentionally when our kids misbehave in public, which happens frequently. Less now. I mean, they're getting older, and they're, you know,
and they're wonderful.
They're good kids. I mean, but they're kids, right? And so, like, I got so many stories. The security cameras around here probably have a lot of footage of my kids taking their clothes off on Sunday morning and just running around because they feel at home in this place. And I'm like, you can't do that, you know. Yeah. But we have to treat them as children, not as trophies, not as pastors' children. Like, nope, you're not shiny right now. Like, buff that out, right?
Well, and that's the heart, right? So it's like, if nothing can fix a heart that is self-serving. Like, you can pretend all, you know.
Hold on, the volume was down. I got to do that again.
That's awesome.
Tim just put that on there. So nothing can fix a heart that's self-serving.
So okay. So let's say that I am who I am, and I start off motherhood, and I'm like, oh, I really want my kids to make me look good. But I'm gonna mimic what Emily does because her kids are well behaved, and that's what I'm gonna do. Well, that's not going to work. And also, what actually needs to happen is I need to come humbly before the Lord and say, God, you know that my heart is pretty yuck in this area, and that it's self-serving. And I ask humbly that you would change my heart to be a heart that desires my kids to make me look good. And for that to be cast away, and for it to be placed with a genuine desire to serve you, God, and to be a good steward of what you've given me, and for that to be the deepest of my heart's desire. And I can't do that on my own because I'm selfish, and I can tell because I know what's in there. And so it's like there is a deep level of humility that one has to come to be able to come to the Lord and say, You've given me a new heart because I am a Christian and because I believe in Jesus. But in this particular area, I still see that my motivations are yucky, and God changed that in me. And that has been my prayer for myself. It's like, oh gosh, like I noticed this is up, and either I can pretend it doesn't exist, or I can be honest with the Lord who knows anyways, right? And hand it and ask him for wisdom in that area, and for a heart and motivations that are more pure, I would say.
Yeah, and I think I want moms to hear this. Like, you're going to take all those imperfections into your mothering, and they're going to make you feel inadequate, right? I mean, is that a safe way to say it?
Yep.
Like, okay. But have some confidence also, because, you know, God decided to put you there. Like, he decided that you would be the mom to your kids, not anybody else, you. And so, you know, God only makes good decisions. And so with all of our imperfections and our need for mercy and for growth and all of that, we can also approach the job that God has given us with good posture and just say, like, all right, you know, and this is true of moms and dads both. Like, you know, I may not be the perfect parent, but I'm the one that's here today. So here's what's going to happen.
Well, and it's so good for them to see the imperfections. I remember thinking, I never wanted my kids to see me cry. I never wanted them to see me fail them. But as I've been home, I'm like, no, this is actually where they get to see what happens when.
Do you remember the first time you saw an adult apologize to you?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if it's ever happened.
Well, then I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I don't think I had that.
For a kid, it's just like,
yeah.
And what an example. It's like, God redeems our screw-ups in huge ways that we don't know how to predict because we see it later.
And if you've never seen that, like if my kids never ever saw anybody make a mistake, they're going to be like, wow, okay. So when it happens to them, say they're, of conscious age and they hit the point where like, wow, I just stole something from somebody else. Like,
I just violated my own conscience.
What do I do with it? And either they're going to go, I genuinely have no idea. I probably hide.
Yep.
Or they're going to go, wow, well, when my mom yelled at me, which she did, which I do sometimes, she didn't brush it underneath. She maybe took a minute and then went, oh, child, whatever number. I'm so sorry, mommy yelled at you, and that's not the way that I should be treating you. You don't deserve that, and that's not kind, and that's not what God's called me to do as a mom. I shouldn't have done that. Will you forgive me? Yes, I forgive you. Okay, I also sinned against God. Like, I need to come to the Lord. Will you sit with me? And we're just going to ask the Lord for forgiveness for the way that mommy just treated you.
Oh man, that's a good idea. I haven't done that. I've asked my kids for forgiveness before, but I've never invited them into the prayer closet for repentance time. That's a great idea.
That's because you're not as failure. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh no, you are. See, there's no cameras in my house.
Opportunities. There are cameras in my house, and sometimes I look at we're playing something of the kids, and I'm like, wow, the Lord was very gracious, and how calm I was able to maintain that external appearance, because inside I was just, whatever. And then there are other times where I'm like, oh, I need to apologize.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I know that the moms that are listening to this have a million things to get to, so we're probably dragging them out a little bit much.
Yes, myself included.
Well, no, that's okay. I kind of want to do another episode with you at some point. So we're going to, because I have just a lot more, questions I think that are general questions that a lot of people have that they could get some wisdom on. But the last thing I want to get you talking about right now is for moms that feel like they're failing in the moment, right? Just can't get on top of it. It's not working. My kids aren't obeying. They're not learning this, or I'm not able to teach it to them. That's not just common. That's universal that happens at least at times. And so for discouraged moms, then, I mean, what are some of your go-to moves when you just feel like it ain't working?
Yeah. That's a good question.
Or what do you wish somebody would tell you, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, I think perspective is huge. And if you're let's say you're in a workout and you hit the end of you, like that's the point of it. Actually, you're lifting your weights and you're like 5 million in one, right? And you're kind of excited when you hit the end of that, because you know that means that you're about to grow. You're actually about to improve in something. And it's so easy to see in the controlled environment that is a gym setting. And I'm sorry if none of you can relate to being someone who likes to work out. Well, I do. Because I like to be able to see that. But in the same way, when you are reaching the end of yourself as a mother, that's actually exactly where it's kind of the point. It's like, okay, that's great. Now you're probably going to grow from it, really, if you don't die in the moment, which you probably won't.
You probably won't.
But you also get the opportunity to be like, Lord, end of myself just happened. Like, can you redeem this hour? I actually had that just happened to me this week. Where, do you mind like short story as we wrap?
You can take all the time you want.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
I just don't want to drag you out too long.
So we had a day, I think it was last week, where I always have high ambitions. That's probably one of my, my problems. But I'm like, okay, we're going to get all of our homeschool work done, and then we're going to get everybody's lunches packed up, and we're going to go to the river, and I'm going to just make sure that this is a time where I don't have a hard stop on our river time. We get to spend as long as they want barefoot throwing rocks in the river. Like, this is totally going to happen. I just have to kind of coordinate nap times and things. And so it was like kind of leading up to that moment. Something happens with one kid, another kid poops in his pants, someone's sassy, and discipline happens, and I start to see myself just crumbling. Like, all of these plans that I had were just like, I'm now almost just too, like, but they all know that this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to go to the river. And I sat there and was like, okay, I now have to bathe the kid, which then, encroaches on this time. And I just sat there and I went, guys, we are not going to the river. Mommy can't, I don't have anything left to go to the river with. And Joshua, in his love, he runs upstairs, and it was a Wednesday, and he And I'm down there like bathing a kid. Like, this is so hard. Like, Lord, I wanted so badly to bring so much joy to this day. And I had all these plans. Like, I need your help even now, just getting to the time in which my husband gets off from work. And I'm getting him clean, like kids cleaned up. And Joshua comes down and hands me a note. And it was kind of like, Lord, help, like, give me a way out. You always say there's a way out. And we open up this note and it says, Dear Mom, I really don't want to go to Awana today. He does. I seriously don't want to go. So please write below whether or not I will be going to Awana. And then it said, P.S. Just remember, no matter what you answer, I will always love you.
Whoa.
And I swear in that moment, I just had the verse, like, the kindness of Christ is what leads us to repentance. Like, I just was like, his little PS of kindness melted my heart. And it was a gift from the Lord. Mm-hmm. And it like renewed my spirit in that moment. And I was like, you know what? I know I said we weren't going to the river, but Joshua, your love for me, your unconditional love for me, just, let's do it, guys.
Yeah,
Who cares if it's messy and sloppy? Let's go get her done. And we went to the river and we were there forever. And it was so, but I knew in that moment, like, that wasn't me.
Yeah.
That was not a me thing. That was the Lord stepping into my brokenness and my discouragement and giving me exactly what I needed through my son.
Yep. So he provided for you. And that means he saw you.
He saw
right?
me.
Like, God was watching that moment. And sometimes, I mean, that's just so huge. Like, you're not alone in this thing. It's not you versus the kids, right? God is empowering this. And moments like that, I think, I'll go so far as to say this, moments like that are of the discouragement. They're so important that those are maybe the primary reason that we respect our mothers. Because every mom has been through it. Every mom knows you've got the t-shirt, you got the scars, and that's part of what it is. So in those moments that feel hopeless, those actually build to a crescendo where later, and well, even in the moment, those build to a crescendo where you are deserving of the respect that motherhood gets. And so there's a purpose to it even right there.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah. Susie, you're awesome. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking some time away from those wonderful, wonderful kids you have. And thank you for raising them and for making disciples and for doing everything that you're doing. We'll have you back.
All right. Thanks. My pleasure.
Hungry for Wisdom is a ministry of Grace and Truth Community in West Richland, Washington. 1 John 4:19. We love him because he first loved us. If you are enjoying Hungry for Wisdom, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share it. Leave us a 5-star rating if you think we've earned it.